Hello, my name is Hugo, and this is Hugo's Desk. Welcome to another episode of You Just Have to Be Better. Today we're going to talk about glows and fires, which is I want to show you a little trick that I've developed over the years after doing a lot of game cinematics. So I've done this kind of trick on pretty much every cinematic I've done, and it's especially good when you're using fire elements like elements from stock footage, or if you're using fire from 3D as well. I have done this successfully on the Body Count cinematic, I've done it on the Just Cause 3 cinematic, I've done it on the Homefront cinematic, on the Rival Kingdom cinematic. I think I've used this kind of technique for almost every project I've done. And this is what I call a 2 or 3 step glow, because usually the glow that you have default in Nuke or in After Effects or any other application is usually not good enough. And most of the times the CG and the elements that you get from fire, they're a bit dull. They don't have a lot of dynamic range. So you kind of have to treat them to make them really punchy and look like fire. Before I start, of course, I would love to have your support, so please feel free to subscribe. Also, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at HugoCGuerre. And of course, last but not least, please support me on Patreon. Of course, these tutorials are all free in YouTube, but I would love to be able to make more of them. I would love to be able to do them weekly instead of once a month like I've been lately doing. This is, of course, all to do with my work. I'm always very busy directing cinematics and doing trailers and visual effects. So, of course, I have to put the tutorials on the back burner. The more support I can get in Patreon, the more it will help me to actually make more tutorials for you guys. So I'll be using some stock footage from Action VFX. If you guys want to check it out, Action VFX has really high quality stock footage. Most of it is in ProRes, but you can also have access to the red footage, which is really cool. So as you can see here, you can actually download most of the files in both ProRes and also in red files. So that means you can actually have access to the full dynamic range of the file. Now, this is the file we're going to use today. This is a piece of fire called GroundFire01. It is an actual original red 4K clip. I have, of course, reformatted it and cropped it and transformed it so that we can use it for this tutorial, because it's a bit heavy for us to actually use it in 4K. So it's probably easier to just do this. So one of the things that I wanted to show you is that this is like a little small trick, because a lot of times people tend to put glows and fires, because it's normal. Because if you look at how fires look in the world, like especially if you look at, if you just Google this night fire, you can kind of see that fires during the night do have a lot of glow. So you see, for example, if you look at this image, you can clearly see that there's like an enormous amount of glow. And this has to do with the fact that fires have a spill of light. And it has to do with the exposure of the camera. So if you're exposing to the actual surroundings like these trees, and of course the fire is going to be completely overexposed. And if you expose to the fire, then you see the fire in much more detail like you see on this picture here. So it's always a bit like a hit and miss. Like you either expose to the fire and then you get the nice detail of the fire but no glow. But on the majority of shots that you see in film, you're exposing to the rest of the people. So when an explosion happens, you're supposed to have an overexposure. That's supposed to be like that. That's the idea. It tends to be that most fires that you get on stock footage or even in 3D, they tend to look a bit dull. They tend to have this kind of look, they, of course, because they're trying to shoot it with the most dynamic range possible. So you can actually use it to your advantage. And if you want, you can actually expose up or you can expose down and have all that nice detail. And just so you can kind of see the amount of detail the Action VFX stock footage has, just look at this. Like if I lower my f-stop, it still has every single bit of detail. Even if you look at the vector scope, nothing has been lost or clamped. Although on the vector scope it looks like it's been clamped, it hasn't. So this is really high quality stock footage, and it's a bit grainy, but nothing that you can't like denoise and actually fix. But, this is not really the purpose of this tutorial. The whole point of this tutorial is to talk about the glow. So what I tend to do is I tend to kind of like have this kind of 2-stage glow, because people tend to have the idea that they're just going to put a glow on top. And so what they usually do is they put a glow like so. And so when you do this, you get this kind of like really fake looking glow. Of course, this is the default. The problem with that is that even if you start messing around with the tolerance, even if you start messing around with the actual brightness of it, and even the size of the glow, there's just so much you can do because it looks very CG-ish. It looks very fake. The reason for that is because glows usually tend to have a very big outer glow and it has an inner glow. And they kind of require two different tolerances. And also, not to mention, when you're using a glow like this and you're using effect only and you're trying to apply the glow on top of the image, the glow node is actually doing a plus operation. So all of your highlights, if you look at the fire here, for example, I have values of 2, 1, 0, 2. When I put the glow, I start having values of 3, 2, 0, 3. And that means it's multiplying the fire by an enormous amount of values. You kind of don't want to do that. You kind of want to control the glow to have a screen operation and not a plus operation. So with all that in mind, let's see how I would actually go around doing this. So I would, of course, delete the fire we have, and I would start playing around with the notion that we would have two fires. So let's say that we put, the glow here. Let's just make a separate stream for the glow. So the whole point of this would be you have your glow. I'm also going to open up this glow, and this is going to be, I'm just going to call it the outer glow. And I'm going to set it up to effect only so that I only have the glow itself. Then I'm going to put a merge node. I'm going to actually make it as a screen operation. I'm going to apply it on top of my image. And so now I'm applying the glow on top. So I'm going to sample that same area, and I'm going to have the glow, the glow we were doing. So if I apply the glow just as it is, with no effect only, and this is direct on top of the image, you can see that my glow values are getting around 3.3. You can see here on the actual values, 3.3, 2.1, and 0.5. Now, if I use the same values, but instead of using... So you see, the difference really is enormous. Like, if you look at how the screen operation handles the glow and how the other glow gets applied, you can kind of see that not only my values are getting multiplied beyond what is reasonable with the footage you have, not to mention that you want to keep the values on a reasonable amount so that people can do color correction properly. You want to give this to a grade artist and to a colorist and still keep it as it should. But you can kind of see on the vector scope, you see how much it crunches the highlights on the top there. You can clearly see them here, how this is really going wrong. And you can even see it on the vector scope, how much it's breaking the values. So my advice is always never use the glow directly. So you always use that as a screen operation. So this, of course, is the first step, which is the outer glow. And that's why I'm calling it the outer glow. Now, the outer glow is similar to the image that you can see here on this fire. You see, it's kind of the majority of the glow that is very dull, but it actually lights up the whole scene around it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to just go ahead here, and I'm not going to really play around with the tolerance. As you know, here on the glow, what happens is the tolerance is kind of like a luma key for you to control how much light you want on your image. And of course, because I want to do an outer glow, I'm not really going to touch the tolerance. I am going to, of course, touch the brightness. Brightness, of course, just making it brighter and brighter. That's just the name says. The saturation, I'm going to leave it for now. And I'm not going to use a width channel. The width channel is really useful when you have CG objects, because you can use masks in CG, like an object ID, to have the glow only being affected on that area. It's really cool for that, but that's not the purpose of this tutorial for today. I am gonna, though, use a huge size on my inner glow. So let's try a really extreme one. So I'm gonna go with 200 for now. As you can see, you have a really cool image now going on here on the waveform. You can really tell how much you're blurring by just looking at the vector scope as I go lower and lower and lower. I'm going to start with 100. As you can see, my bounding box is getting crazy. So I'm going to put a crop node here. Make sure you select the glow so the crop affects this resolution you have here. And then I'm going to put it on top. Now, the thing that I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to control the brightness of my inner glow. So I'm going to brighten it down as much as I can. I'm actually going to put a size of 200 and then start bringing it up again. So I'm just going to have like a really subtle glow. I might just use the tolerance just a little bit. I might do a really huge blur. So I'm doing a 300 of blur and then a 0.2 of brightness. And that should give me, actually I'm going to lower even more. So I'm going to put 0.5. So you see, as you can see here, I have really this really nice outer glow almost like the spilling, like the lens is actually making a spill of light because the exposure is really hard for you to pick up. And that's also giving me this really nice light up effect on top of the fire. So that's my outer glow. Now be careful with the outer glow. It gets really saturated because as you brightness and do the tolerance, it kind of gets a bit red. So you might want to go into the saturation, just lower it a little bit. One of the things that I've noticed is that fire, for it to look realistic on film, usually you want to remove the saturation a little bit. So I'm going to remove like 30% of the saturation. I think that will give me a better glow effect. So that's as you can see, that's already giving me a much nicer glow than what I had. This looks like some kind of shitty After Effects comp glow that you can see from like a Sapphire plugin or something. And this is like a really nice photographic glow of like a spread of light. So now let's look at the other thing. So now I'm going to do an inner glow. So I'm going to just select all of this here and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to connect it to this thing. And now I'm going to really radical change this glow. So I'm actually going to go ahead and set all of it to default because I don't want to really start. I want to start over. I'm going to put an effect only as well on it. And now I'm going to really crunch the tolerance. I want to really only glow the highlights. So I'm going to lower the blurring for maybe 5 or 6 pixels. And I'm going to brightness really low, desaturate quite a lot, and then merge that on top. So now this glow, the inner glow, is giving me just a little hint of light inside the glow. So I'm just going to look at the result and see how much it's giving it. So as you can see here, it's just giving you just enough. I am going to blur it less because it looks a bit wrong. I'm just going to blur by 2 pixels. And of course, the amount of blurriness that you're putting on the inner glow has to do with the amount of pixels you're dealing with. This is an HD image, so 1 pixel is probably going to be fine. If you're using a 4K image, you probably want to put more pixels on the blur. Depends on the image. And so as you can see here, this is just giving you, remember how dull it looks inside of the fire. This is just giving you a little slight overexposure on the fire inside of it. And of course, this is all controlled by the tolerance. So you probably want to improve the tolerance. You probably want to improve the brightness to make it more overexposed. And this is, of course, a case-to-case base. Like it really depends on what you're trying to do. For me, because I don't have anything else, I don't have any background, I don't have any other things around it, I think this is looking okay for a fire that, just like on these pictures, would overexpose on the inner core and not on the outer core. Now, the other thing I'm going to also do here is I'm going to start doing a bit of color correction to this as well. So at the very end, I'm going to just put a color corrector node here, and I'm just going to tweak this fire a little bit. So first of all, I want to bring back some of the inner glow. So I'm going to go into my midtones and just see if I can just bring in some gain and some gamma to the inner glow. I'm also going to perhaps contrast a little bit, remove some of the saturation as well. Of course, now I'm just doing certain things that I think could look good, but it doesn't really mean that you have to do that. You know, it's all about the taste, and not only the taste, but it's all about what you're comping to. So it depends on the scene that you're doing. But I think I'm quite happy with this. You see, we started with that fire, and this is our result. So the fire looked like that. It was quite dull. There was no sense of spread on the fire. And now it has a inner core that is much more overexposed, and it has an outer core. The only thing I'm still going to do, I think I'm exaggerating a little bit on this color correction. I'm just going to not have it so powerful. I'm just going to lower some of these things that I've done here, just because I think I went overboard. I'm also going to put my inner glow a little stronger so we see it a bit better. My outer glow as well, and that's really it. Now, one last thing that sometimes I do, and I'm just gonna play back this to see how it actually looks. It's gonna take a little bit because it's a piece of red footage, so just bear with me. Okay, and as you can see here, we're getting a really nice result. We have a nice inner glow. Also, you can kind of see that it's traveling a bit on the camera here. You have the glow kind of moving a bit, and that's all coming from the outer glow and its tolerance. And so this is a much more realistic fire. Now we can even improve this even better by, of course, putting a bit of grain. If you have the grain from the plate, even better. If you don't have the grain from the plate, you can, of course, invent some grain. I'm just going to put some grain just to show you how much better it gets. So as soon as you start putting grain, of course, I would have to denoise the plate of the fire first and then grain back this, because what you want basically to actually properly do this, just might as well, I'm here, might as well do it properly. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go in here to my red footage. I'm going to pick up the red footage. I tend to use the denoiser called Reduce Noise, which is my favorite plugin to denoise this kind of plate. It's really the best denoiser out there for Nuke, really, I think. So if you guys want to check it out, you should. It's really good. So I'm just going to do an auto profile. Of course, this tutorial is not about the noise of the fire, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I just want to show you denoising really quickly. As you can see, we got rid of most of the noise. Now, this is why I really like this denoiser from Neat Video. It's because you see all the detail of the fire is still here, and you only lost really what you don't want, which is the actual noise. So it's really powerful. It's really, really powerful stuff. So that's the noise now. And then, of course, at the end, you either would have to bring in the original noise, or you would have to put some new noise, whatever noise you would have if you have a grain plate, or if you have a specific stylistic noise that you want to put in. In here, on my case, I'm just going to do a stylistic noise because I'm not doing an actual comp. So I'm going to just use the Luma Picture grain. And as you can see here, now I have the correct grain on the actual inner glow and outer glow of the whole thing. And so if you look at how this piece of footage looks like, versus, so this is how it used to look, and that's the final result. So you see you get this really nice light up on the middle and the actual spread of the fire, the outer spread as well. Now, if you wanted to push this even further, sometimes, depends on, of course, the project, but sometimes I do even a third stage fire. And this is done either by using a glow. This is going to be a really basically almost like a glint. So imagine like glint glow. And on this kind of situation, what you want to do is you want to push the tolerance to almost a maximum. So you almost have no tolerance. And the brightness, you probably can't push that much. And then you also want to blur a little bit. And that will be this kind of fire. Now, what you also have to do is I need to push the tolerance even more. And I want to desaturate even more. So what you're trying to get is these like pockets of glow that just show up. So if I play this back, you'll see what I mean. I'm just going to really quickly disable the reduce noise because the reduce noise is so slow. So what you see here is you just basically trying to make this kind of blob looking fire. I'm just going to bring it to maybe this much, and I maybe not blur it so much. And so you get this kind of inner glow. And now once you've put it in, you see you just get these kind of highlights. I'm just going to not blur it so much. The other thing as well that I usually tend to do is I put a cheeky sharpen node here, just so that I can get as much sharpness as I can from this. I am also going to clamp this, put a sharpen, and just put it on top. What you're trying to do is to get these kind of inner light glows that just fill up these little pockets of fire. And it just gives you a little nice detail. And then sometimes I even do a fur thing, which is a glint. And again, this is just really a stylistic thing. You might not want to put a glint on everything because it looks really horrible if you do that. So I'm just going to really quickly, I'm not going to put a glow here. What I'm going to put is a glint. So the glint, the way you're going to do it is the same way. You're going to do effect only. I am going to make quite long stripes. I'm going to make like a bunch of rays. I might even do 20 rays. I just want to have a lot of sparkle on that. At least try first. The length that has to be much smaller, almost like that. I'm also going to do the steps on a much more higher quality. And the length has to be much shorter. And then what you have to do as well, you have to use the tolerance. I'm going to actually make the tolerance much lower. the fire much lower. I'm then going to actually put a color corrector here, saturate it quite a lot, glow it quite a lot less, and then put it on top of the fire. So what you want to do here as well is you want to put a defocus, just so that the glint kind of gets a bit more. You don't want to have these kind of sharpened spikes. So now you also have to like use the tolerance even further. I might just make much more glow here. Yeah, that sounds good to me. I'm also going to make the defocusing a bit less, and that should give me just this extra kind of glint that happens on top. And so now, let's have a look at this. Let's play it back and see how it looks, especially if I use from the beginning. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just do from the beginning how it looks so that you can kind of see it growing off screen almost. I think that could be quite cool. And now we wait for it to actually record. Okay. Sorry, I put the beginning of the clip. Of course, now we see the guy actually lighting up the fire, but that doesn't really matter. What I really wanted to show you is, as you can see now, we have a really nice outer glow that kind of fluctuates with the image. We have a really nice inner glow that really overexposes in certain moments. And as you can also notice, there's like these really nice little details of little pockets of small little glows, which are coming from that glint effect that we're trying to produce. So as you can see, this is looking a much more photographic kind of fire, and because of the outer glow we even can kind of see the really nice displacement going on the floor and everything. So just to recap, as I showed you, we start with a really nice outer glow which is a bit desaturated and merged on top. We then have an inner glow which is really not blurred, desaturated a little bit with a lot of tolerance on the glow. Then we have a little very small tolerance glint glow, and then we have a bit of a glint as well with a lot of the focus and color correction. All of it together with, of course, denoising the plate first, and then, of course, regraining the plate with the correct grain in case you have the plate, of course. And that's pretty much the tutorial for us today. As you can see, we get a pretty good photographic fire with the whole thing. This process works really well with CG fire. So maybe next time I can show you actually how that works. And so that is it for me today. So as always, please don't forget to subscribe Hugo's Desk. That will really be really cool if you do that. Also, please share with your friends if you think someone that you like that likes visual effects might want to check out my channel as well. Also, of course, please feel free and help me in Patreon. The more money I can get in Patreon, the more tutorials I can produce, and my hope is that someday I can have enough money in Patreon that I can produce like weekly videos for you guys. And of course, follow me on Twitter, Hugo C. Guerra. I hope you've enjoyed the content, and thank you so much for your support. So I'll see you next time on more Hugo's Desk. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you around. Thank you.